Hey everyone, my name is Matthew Holdenreid. I'm the Director of Marketing for the Center for Entertainment Arts. We are a digital entertainment education provider that partners with world-class public institutions so we can provide our students with every advantage possible. We have an incredible list of world-class instructors. 90% plus are currently working in studios on some massive projects in VFX, animation, and gaming. Tonight, we are thrilled to have Michael Kessler joining us for this webinar sponsored by Bow Valley College, where the Center for Entertainment Arts will be launching 3 innovative programs this coming January. Details on that can be found at cea.bowvalleycollege.ca or by emailing programs@thecea.ca. So who is Michael Kessler? Michael started in games 16 years ago in Vancouver. Over the years, he has worked all over the art department, from concept art, environment art, and most recently, procedural asset generation. He sees the usage of tools like Houdini as core parts of development as games get larger and are more difficult to make. He will be showing us some very cool techniques that almost seem like magic. I can see this workflow benefiting a wide range of production scenarios. Thanks again to Bow Valley College for sponsoring this event. Take it away, Michael.
So, hello everyone. Wow, people from all over the place. That's great. Welcome. Our tiny world connected with through the internet. Awesome. So, I'm going to be presenting how to use noise in Houdini and how it interrelates with computer games and procedural generation of assets and whatnot. So, just add noise. Houdini height fields and volumes. So some of the things that I'll be going over in this webinar will be an explanation of the interface for people who are new to the software Houdini made by Side Effects. There's a lot of similarities to those of you who have already used 3D software. So if you're coming from Maya, 3D Studio Max, Blender, some of it will be totally familiar, but some of the hotkeys will be different. And the way that you work within Houdini is a little bit different. And I'll explain why and how, etc. Height fields. This is a great place to start in Houdini, I think. It's very easy to understand, a linear flow. And you can also, even for people that already know, you can do some really great, cool things for it. From something we're going to explain today is making an actual silhouette for the outside of the world, like an actual physical mountain, as well as the mountain, the landscape that you walk on. And it's just great for learning the node-based network. All of the nodes are labeled height field, so you can't like miss one. You'll always see it. You'll see what I mean when we get to it. Yeah, we're gonna output that height field as an Unreal landscape. So just using the Unreal Engine. So a lot of these tools you'll also be able to use for free as well. I believe, yeah, I think there's like a free intro Houdini, except you'll have to, it won't export a height map without the watermark on it. So that'll be, so you'll have a huge watermark on your terrain, but you can also get an indie version. And if you attend a school, you'll have access to a school license. The basic usage of the Houdini engine as well, which is another whole different thing. I'll show you the basic usage of it, and it'll get you started with the practical usage of creating an asset and be able to use this customizable asset within a game engine. And I'll show you how that works too. Yeah, it's super enlightening. If any of you have ever made computer games or have seen very complex types of assets in a game, sometimes they're generative. They're like in the case of No Man's Sky, for example. They have a lot of procedurally generated assets. And you can do some of that here just in this software. And we'll go over some of that. And yeah, that's great. So exciting. So here's a picture of a terrain I made. This is just basically taking a flat plane and then masking out an area and then saying, make the other stuff bumpy. and then running an erode filter on it, or an erode node. And I'll show you that in just a sec, but it's a really simple process, but you get to be able to create these customizable and dynamic objects, in this case, a terrain. So yeah, let's go. Now I can exit out of here. There we are. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Okay, so off we go. We just grab this. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the interface first. So with Houdini, there's so much stuff on the screen. Like you'll see, like, you'll probably recognize the shelf up here from if you're used to using software like Maya. And I believe Max has some kind of shelf as well. And there's, tab upon tab upon tab of stuff that you may never even use. Houdini is an extremely large software. So just kind of ignore most of it. A lot of it does exactly what you think it does. It'll make a sphere. But the way you interact with Houdini is mainly through this window, this node window. And that's what makes it special. And over here, you'll see, selection, move, etc. So this special window here, it's quite small. You have to navigate nodes like this and kind of scoot around using the middle mouse. You'll notice even the window here, it has this similar to Maya's Alt, click, middle mouse, and then dolly with left and right with the right click. And it has the same functionality in here as well, but it's just 2 dimensions instead of 3 with the rotation. So if we go over to one of these nodes, they have detailed information on it, etc. And it's easier for me personally. It's going to be easier for me to teach this to you, and also it's going to be easier for you to see on a screen, in case you have the screen small or whatnot. Is if we put this information about the selected node over on the right, and then the geometry object area to the right. So there's numerous ways of doing it. I like to just hold the Alt key and then clicking in the middle here. This is like a pro tip. I like the first thing I'm teaching you is like a very strange pro tip, but why not? This is my favorite method of working. And if you just click this, it just ping pongs it back and forth there. So Houdini has an incredibly dynamic interface where you can move tabs around, you can pin stuff and have multiple tabs, etc. It's it's one of my favorite softwares. And I only use it for video games, which is strange. So most people use it for effects and other simulations and stuff. I use it for creating procedural assets for video games. That's my main reason. I was a traditional modeler in your Blenders and Houdini, or in Maya 3D Studio Max. And I saw a tutorial for Houdini showing how you could, something that I had done in my career very slowly for years, I could make the computer do it. So I jumped at that opportunity and started learning it. And it was quite a steep learning curve, but once you get going, it's powerful, So let's jump in. So creating a height field. So this is the main area. So this is the data on every node. It has different information. And this node has a little blue tab, a purple tab, and you have little icons that kind of tell you what they do as well. If you mouse over, it'll actually tell you as well. So anything you do in Houdini, you'll be able to mouse over. If you don't gather it the first time during this webinar, you'll be able to load up the software and just mouse over and read what that function is per each of these. These just displays, you see that dot there. This displays normals. This doesn't have normals because it's a special type of asset, etc. But it doesn't have that either, actually. So anyways, let's begin. So to create a terrain for a video game, the idea is to create a wobbly surface, essentially, and bake out that image. So baking it out turns this into a texture that's going a black and white texture that has an elevation. It's an elevation map essentially of what the terrain in our game engine will look like. So if I just zoom out here, just because of lag, etc., I don't want to make anyone sick, so I'm gonna try and go slow here. So this is an elevation I created within Houdini and baked it out and brought it into the engine. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So if we go to a height map, so I'm going to create one next to this. So everything works with nodes. If you're used to Maya's history, this is kind of like that, but far more functional. You'll be able to go back to nodes, add nodes in, etc. So how this works is I create a height field. And to do that, I press tab to open up the tab menu, and I type HF, and it jumps to all the height field stuff. You can actually write out height field as well, but it's, or if you spell it correctly, and it'll show you all the height field stuff, but you can also just type HF. The search bar in here is absolutely magnificent. You can like just type, I think maybe polyframe PF. Yeah, so it's like the second one. Very good search functionality in the software. So if we go to height field, we'll create a blank height field. So, and to render it, what these tabs do, this makes it visible. That's the thing that's visible right now, is the height field. So we have a height field here. That's great. It's plain. It's got an initial height of 0, masking. It's got a bunch of information. You can mouse over these and read them. It's kind of unimportant just right now. This is the scale. That's the important part here. The axes, the orientation, you could actually change if you wanted to have a world on the side maybe, but there's no point really. We'll just make it ZX. And this is the dimensions of said terrain. So let's make it wobbly. So the next node that I make, so that by typing tab and then typing HF and then clicking height field, it's created that node. And this is what we're viewing right now that we have this little eyeball on it. This may seem strange, but if you use it for 30 days or more, it's going to become more natural. You can, like other 3D software that you've used previously. So if we go into our height field, if we drag off this node, so the next node I want to do is height field, HF, and I want noise. So I just type noise and it jumped to noise. So I want to use height field noise. And then we will render that by clicking the eye or the blue tab there. And boom, we have a terrain done. Webinar over. Just kidding, of course. That is not the webinar, but that's the beginning. So now we have a terrain and we have a noise on it that we can adjust. We can adjust how big it gets, how the size of the element. So that's like essentially if you saw the cloud filter in Photoshop expand, and that's kind of the principle here. You can see it get larger. It clamps at 1000, but I think you can overclock this. Overclocked, perfect. So a lot of numbers that you can just type in. So there's a lot of that in Houdini. There's a lot of typing in numbers, doing things. You can also crash your computer by like making too many polygons, using a subdivision, things like that. So there are times in Houdini you have to be careful. It's for serious 3D applications. So anyways, let's go back to the standards here. Like let's put this back at 512 and we'll turn this amplitude down a bit. So with a video game terrain, I want to have the outside sort of masked. I want to have the outside masked so it has like a nice and smooth outside. So to do that, and what I'm going to show you is I'm going to give you the basics. This is like practical knowledge. So the basics of how to get a terrain in a game. So you don't want these bumpy edges on the outside, right? Because it would just go off into the world, or you might have something that goes up like this. And this kind of leaves a weird artifact. You basically want it flat around the edges, bumpy in the middle, so that you can crash in other objects on the outside. That's one way of doing it. There's, of course, thousands, right, in game. Maybe not thousands, hundreds, tens maybe, of ways to create that effect in a game. Skybox stuff, etc. So aside from that, those are other things, branches of things you can learn off on your own, like creating skyboxes and stuff that will go with these skills. We're creating an environment in a game. So now we have a height field, we have a noise. Now we want to create a mask. So the mask we want to create, this is going to get weird, but don't worry about it. Just if you keep watching Houdini tutorials and game stuff, there's a myriad of information out there. This will get you started essentially. So I'm going to take this object and shrink it down and make that a mask. And I'll show you how that looks. So we're going to go HF mask. And we want to use an object. So this, our first object, this plain thing, will be the mask, but shrunken down. I'm going to show you one of the nodes that you're going to use a lot, and that's called the transform node. Transform. We'll drop that down. So again, pressing tab, typing transform, this one will pop up. Now, if I drag this into here and make this viewable, I can now scale the whole entire terrain, just like that. Now, this is the power of Houdini. If you have an art director that says it's too big or whatever, you can just have this node and just export the whole thing, the whole process, the whole UVing, the whole process of creating a game asset. You can just, it doesn't take as much time of redoing something. There's more place breakpoints where you can fix stuff in between. So in this case, I'm just making a mask. Now, if I want to see how much smaller it is, I can actually view that one by pressing this purple flag here. And this one is a template. So you can see this outline here. That's basically the wireframe of a terrain, a height field, excuse me. This is a pretty dense topic, like what is a height field, etc. But I'm just going to smoothly go through it, and it's something that you can read more into, but you will be able to totally understand what I'm doing, but the details of it will be kind of obfuscated. So like a height field is like a 2D voxel type mesh. So it's creating a height field, it's creating elevation and, convex and concave areas in this mesh, but it's done with a voxel type system. I'll just leave you with that. And you guess what it means. No, I'm just kidding, but it's pretty cool. And there's tons of reading material on their website for if you want to get into the details of how each node works. Okay, so off we go, creating that mask. So if you mouse over these pins, it's just like other software too. Blender has the same thing, pins in their node material network, Unreal. I believe Unity has some cool node network stuff as well now, if I'm not mistaken. But you can mouse over and it tells you what this pin needs. It needs an input of geometry. That's that thing we just made smaller. And we want to input, what does this need? It needs a terrain to mask. So it needs our terrain. Okay, that's cool. And then we'll make that visible. And boom, that's our mask. It's actually using, this is the cool thing. Everything you can use a box that you've made, way up in a network, and you can reuse it further down in a network. And in our case, we're just using our height field to make it a bit smaller, to make a mask that we will use to mask off this area so nothing happens on the edges. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a blur, a height field mask blur. Now, this is the reason I picked height fields, is because they have all of the nodes just by typing HF. Some of the nodes you'll be using will be in, from primitives, Polygon, etc. And there's, and they all have different names, and whatnot. And they do, widely different things. That one, by the way, Polygon, is very similar to your, Polygon editing and other software. And it's just in this Polygon category, just for a heads up. Okay, so I basically want to blur this red mask here. This is masking like you do in Photoshop, by the way. It's like this totally the same thing, except it's on your height field. So HF mask, and I want to mask blur. And that's going to be like a Photoshop blur. And I'm going to put that into that one input. It's red because it needs that input. It doesn't need this secondary input, so we can just ignore that. Now we'll make this visible. Oh, look at that. Ta-da! Now it's like blurring a little bit. Okay, let's just crank it. There we go, cranked it. And now it's blurred. Okay, great. So remember our noise that we made originally? Oh, okay, see what's happening here? I have this templated, so we can just turn that purple off. Goodbye. And then just select this and turn the render flag on. Okay, cool. So, it has all these dips on the edges, etc. We don't want that. We don't want that kind of business. So what we want to do is a lot of the height field nodes have a mask area because they know you're going to be doing different kinds of masking. So what I'm going to do here is go into this mask node by dragging it there. And now, as you see, all of that area that wasn't red is masked smoothly at the edge of the terrain. It's like magic. Oh my goodness. Okay, so if I just zoom here, if I go to our, we're on it already, our noise. So you can like really crank it up and it'll never affect that stuff that's been masked. As you would in other software with masking types, Blender or Photoshop, etc. Cool, well that's great. And it's totally modular. So I can come back and add stuff if I need to. Another node that we can add here is the noise distort. So again, height field, noise, distort by noise. This one's great. So what it's going to do is I'm going to input our terrain right now, and where there's noise on it, it's going to give it a wiggle to make it look a little bit more natural. So that's cool. That's fine. We like it. And you can also select from two different types of noise, curl and simplex. I will not be getting into what these are exactly, but it's proper science. You can, of course, if you understand that already, you'll know what's going on here. I, however, don't. I just know the effect that it does and know how to manipulate the effect. So yeah, you can come in here and customize it. Again, you can customize scale. You'll notice these as well. There's always a vector. There's X, Y, and Z on a lot of Houdini nodes. And that's exactly what it is. So I can scale it on X, 10, and this is how you customize the effect it's giving. You see how it kind of has striations coming this way? And maybe give this in the y-axis 200. You can come in and really customize your values here. There's something very special about how Houdini's vector or just inputs are as well. They have something called the ladder. Is when you middle mouse over top of it, you can move by 100s, 10s, 1s, and then your floating point numbers, your decimals down here. And when you middle mouse, you can go, I want to move in ones, and you can actually drag it up, and it'll only move in integers, in the whole numbers. It's pretty cool. I'm just going to leave it like that. Just give it a slight wiggle. That's great. Okay, so we've customized our terrain a little bit. We can actually do other types of masking. For example, if I wanted to mask an area that by hand, I'll just show you this really quickly, but you can go in and test out these tools, and it's really a lot of fun. So if I go to our mask, okay, and again, I'm pressing the blue flag on there to jump around or to render what part of the network, the node network, we are viewing. Oh, sorry, I wasn't checking chat. Oh, can everyone see? Yes, I think so. Yes. Yes, it is just Houdini right now, the screen. So if we go to create a mask, so what we want to do is, let's do it down here. So we've already got our thing distorted, and now we want to height field mask, but what kind of mask? We can mask by object. We've already used that. Mask by feature, that's a very powerful one. I will show that one next, actually. So now what I want to do is, you can actually just paint a mask, draw a mask. Let's do that. So after this node, I want to paint a mask. I think it may already have a mask on it, but it's cool that we're going to come across that issue. So node info, you know, there's a little letter I here, and if you click it, it'll tell you the details of that node. So there's 2 points, it's primitives. These are the types of components of an object, like a 3D object in Houdini. It has points, primitives, vertices. This is a volume, that's a special one. That's a whole nother topic. Again, this is a vast software, but it's like, once you do it for 30 days, you'll understand a lot of this, and it'll become natural. And I think you start understanding more about other just plain modeling software. Like, you'll understand like what a vertex is, or a point, etc. So and it actually even tells you how fast it cooks, 29 milliseconds. And that's how fast it takes to render this part of the node. Okay, so we're going to draw a mask. So from here, once you have a node selected and you press enter in this screen, the viewport, you'll be given a drawing lasso. So now that I have that selected, what I can do is, again, blur that mask. And you know what I can do is I can actually just copy paste that part of the network, this node that we already did. So I don't want to do that again with the same parameters, etc. So I can just copy it. And using the Y key, I can turn my pointer into scissors. It's the Y key because the Y looks like scissors. It's kind of one of my favorite hotkeys in any software. So then you just drag, cut that line. So now it's not connected. And that's this exclamation is saying that it's not, it needs some input. Essentially, it can't cook right now. So we want to drag this there. And now this selection that I just made will blur. Hooray! And now what I can do is I can invert that selection by clicking our height field draw mask and selecting invert. And I just want to affect this area here. So what I can do now is add, I guess, another height field noise, HFN height field noise. And if you're familiar with Substance Designer, this is like that as well, but on 3D objects. So we have an issue here, and you can also compare what's going on. Oh, I'm silly. So what I needed to do was put this mask through, and now it's just doing the red part when I actually want the inverse of that. So let's go back and select our height field mask and turn this into, invert this mask. So again, in each of the nodes, they're so detailed. Each move you make has numerous tabs, parameters, keywords, and all kinds of things that you can use other places in your node network. There's even a way to program in Houdini. Like you can use their integrated language called Vex to set the normals of an object or something, all kinds of things. So I want to invert that mask. So I'm going to invert. And now, if I look at our height field, it's only affecting the masked area. So again, I can like really crank that up. Or I could even use, instead of this noise, maybe we'll try a different kind of noise. So this is making a tremendous crevasse. Perlin noise. So when mixing these noises together, you're creating all kinds of interesting terrain. And this is how you paint a picture with these types of noises, by blending them together, etc. So Worley is a really cool noise. We want to turn that down quite a bit though. And maybe we'll make sort of a pit. We should move. So here's the thing. I don't want this off to the side here. So what I can do, like this open side here. So if I sculpted this in ZBrush, I'd have to go back to the drawing board. In our case, we just move up the network to where we painted that draw mask, which was here, height field draw mask 1. Now that I have this selected, what I can do is remove that stroke and do it again. Now watch this. If I make the last node visible with our extra height field noise and utilizing this mask, what I can do is press enter while this is selected, and it'll give me the draw lasso. So now when I draw the lasso, I am dynamically creating that crevasse in the shape that I desire. And I can just re-export that as a mesh or whatever into our game engine. So this is meh, it's okay. I don't know why I created a crevasse, but let's go with it. It's different. So now what I want to do is I'll use our final node here. So I'm going to erode this surface. So now I have a terrain that I can edit, or that I can erode the surface to give it a more natural feel, like when rain erodes a mountain. There's a node for that within our height fields. So if I type HF erode, and I will just use the first one, the erode node. Now this is a simulation, so it actually has to run an animation through. So it's another node that's a little bit different. A lot of nodes are. There's some very special nodes in here. So in this one, I will render it. So it's giving me these funny colors. So with it selected, I actually want to go to the visualization tab and click compute range. Now what it's going to do is compute its lowest range to its highest range. Compute range. That's cool. Okay. Now, and you can see like mountaintops are white, gray, rock, below green. Red, I guess what is red? I guess that's lava. I'm not actually sure. I've never seen that. I don't think I've seen it. Oh no, it's my mask. Never mind. I'm crazy. So, but I like the idea that it's lava. That's kind of funny. So great. Okay, great. Now the really complex part now, not the really complex part. It's not complex. There's a million parameters in here. Now this is up to you to come in and start changing some of these. Now remember that it can get really sluggy, really slow, because these are pretty powerful computations. So in our case, I want it to stop on frame 20. Let's freeze at frame 20 by clicking that radio box. And now it's going to bake. It's going to cook all of that information of water going down the surface and eroding and making lakes, etc. So there we go. So now you can see where it's making lakes. It's actually utilizing my mask. I could have cleared my mask, but it doesn't matter for our purposes. Isn't that interesting? So you can see where water, precipitation and water has kind of pushed its way down the mountainside to create these lakes and sort of a natural environment. So I can go back to visualization and turn that off, and you can, I really should clear that mask. And how you do that is, I believe I have it here as well. No, that's okay. We'll just do it here. So it's not red, essentially. Mask, height field mask clear. Another just height field HF mask clear will clear that mask so that it no longer has that red thing in it. The reason we see red in this last one is because this was a simulation that ran, and now something's different, and that's why these frames down here are orange. Tons of information, I understand, but it's just a dense topic. So don't be afraid of like jumping in and just playing around. For me, it was quite frustrating at first because it didn't work like Maya or Max, but it's intensely more powerful where you have the finite control over the littlest function in here. Just one node has, X amount of power. So now that I've cleared that, let's run that simulation again I'll reset the simulation, and because I have freeze at 20, it'll just automatically cook it to frame 20. So you notice what it's doing down here. It's cooking. Cooking the operator, beep, 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 beep. There, ta-da. Now we don't have that red bottom anymore. And we've got an interesting sort of cave level. You can imagine, what's going on down here in some kind of, I don't know, Doom-esque game or something. I don't know. Space. Yeah. So, okay, now that we have a train, how about we save our file since we haven't saved it yet? It's probably a good idea. And then we're going to use height field output. I'll just use this one. So again, you can actually scavenge from your other nodes. In this case, I'm going to snip it right there, snip. And I already have a place on my hard drive where I'm grabbing this texture from. So it's going to be a 2048 by 2048 EXR file. I'll render this. So, and with this node, I just click save to disk. So it's on a place on my hard drive, save to disk, beep, 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 beep. It's rendering. Successfully saved. Perfect. Okay, so now's the fun part. We've basically saved a texture, like a 2D texture of a terrain. And we're going to input it into a terrain in a video game. So how does that work, Michael? Well, first you create a terrain. It's pretty simple to create a terrain in Unreal. You basically just go here and type, it's called a landscape, I'm sorry. A landscape, and you just drag one into the scene, and it asks you what you want to do. Do you want to just paint it by hand, or do you want to take it from a height map? So in our case, we want to take it from a height map. And I'll show you that dialog here. If we go to our terrain editing, if I go over to the modes, change the mode to landscape. So this is still, now that I am using a height map here, but you can actually come in and start painting just like you would in your sculpting software. So, it has that, and this is kind of fun all on its own. And there's some tools to make it look like a real terrain. We just don't happen to be using those right now. We're going to be doing, selecting our height map, paint, sculpt, manage, clear component selection. So what I want to do here is go to our height map, import from file, right-clicking this, import from file. I'm going to do a new file, so I'm going to select a different one. Noise, reference. Oh, interesting. Okay, so let's go double check in where it's putting this. It's into source. Yeah, okay. That should be the right folder. Let me just check on my side here. So if I go into here, gosh, the time went much faster than I anticipated. I had timed this out, but I think I was talking faster. So if I go to here, let's just click that. There we go. Yeah, that should be in there. So did it export? Oh yes, terrain height EXR. Oh, it needs a PNG. That's why. So I was utilizing the wrong file format here. I think I had it set to EXR for another reason. So the cool thing about Houdini is I don't need to like change, like go in and like change the dialog. I can actually just type PNG. It knows what that file format is. So I can just go save to disk and then voila, it does that. Excuse me. And then as you can see here, that's the file it just made. Now, for the fun part, we're going to go back into our game engine, Unreal. This is just a plain third-person automatic, template, by the way. It's not like a fancy template. It's just simple terrain chucked in a third-person template. So if I go to where I want to go here, which is this, you can actually see the two PNG files here. So this is our new one that we've just created. Open. The height map size. Okay, so it's actually would prefer this size because you can look this up, but for each terrain there and its scale, etc., there's a different pixel size texture that you need. There's a UDK or Unreal page for that. But for our case, we just want to see that it's bumping up and down. Cool. So, gonna save first. Okay, now we're going to, let me just make this a bit faster because it's a large terrain. Now, as you can see, that is the terrain we created in Houdini. It's not quite as bumpy, but that I think there's something to do with the translation of PNG. It's like not as deep. We go into our Houdini and check. Oh, maybe, yeah, it's like not quite as deep. Let's just forget about that for now. But we do have a terrain that comes from Houdini and into our game engine with all the, these sort of bumpy parts where it's eroded, etc. So let me just jump to my player start. And let's get out of terrain mode. So that's it. That's all there is to it. You basically make a terrain, export it, bring that height map in, put it on, poof, there it is. That's and if you liked it, you can actually come in and customize stuff if you needed to, etc. Again, you're going to lose this customization, I believe, if you bring in a new height map, where you hand paint your stuff. So if we get out of this mode and go to select mode and select our player start and jump to that by pressing F. Hello. There we go. I just want to make sure it wasn't under the terrain. Otherwise, if I pressed play, I would have fallen through the world. Oh gosh, hello. There we go. So now if I press play, I can stand on that terrain and walk around, that one we just created from Houdini. And it is gigantic. So that's fun. Cool, great. Making video games is easy. No, it's not. It's intensely difficult, but that is a fun part of it right there. So next, okay, so we've made a terrain and we've actually chucked it in a game, and it wasn't too difficult. And we know how to make a terrain and customize it, etc. And there's a million other nodes that you can put in here to hand paint and make it look a little more realistic. So what we want to do now is create noise, or use noise to create an object. So you saw in my Unreal scene, I had those like weird coral shapes in there. Let's try and create something like that with noise. So, by the way, this is like kind of a navigation bar that you would see in like Windows or something. And this is the different modes of Houdini, essentially. The one that we're only messing with today is objects. And it's just like you think, like any kind of object. So if I click that, you can create, you see this gray lettering here? It says geometry. This is a geometry node. Ta-da, that's it. It encapsulates objects. It's like the root of an object in Blender or Maya, for example. So let's create one from scratch. So you just type geometry. Thanks, Arnav. It is magic. So type geometry, bring a geonode in. And now we're going to call this rock asset. I already created one there, but let's just delete it. Just show you the whole process in the object mode here. So we're going to jump inside of that by double clicking it. You can go outside of it by using this navigation up here to click object up there. Now you see there's no rock asset. It tells you where you're inside of right now. Okay, so it's nested. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to create a rock, some kind of weird rock shape. So I probably want to start with a shape. So let's try sphere. Type in sphere, and sphere shows up. Ta-da! Pretty fascinating. Okay, so let's zoom in, just like other softwares. Oh, okay. So I can't zoom in. Nothing's showing up. So what's wrong? You'll find this a lot. So this is a good that we came across this. So when you open this up, you don't get too frustrated. You'll understand that you have to go up a level and look around. So I'm hiding the landscape right now, and we're making a rock asset. These can be thought of as like two objects in like a Maya scene. Like I made a terrain over there, and here's an object. You can stick it all. It's like a big bag of tricks. All right. So I'm going to click this sphere. Why can't I zoom into it? What's up with that? Undo, undo. Oh, is it too small? No, it isn't. Okay. I was in a move mode. Okay. So it's a primitive. I want to turn this to polygons. So there's a tab for that, or like a drop down. Great. Turn that off. Okay, so I've got this sphere shape that I can, scale, etc. Now I want this rock to become a volume. Now a volume is kind of a strange concept. It's like turning this into a cloud. Let's just think of it that way. I want to keep it pretty simple. It's like turning this into a cloud. Now, how I want to turn this into a cloud is by using an ISO offset. So now this sphere is a cloud. If I zoom out, you can see. I'll make this darker too, so that you can see the cloud. I always turn it to dark mode when I'm doing smoke and stuff like that. Always the dark mode. Okay, cool. So now with this cloud, I want to scatter points that. No, what do I want to do with this cloud? No, let's do something different. Let's go back. Okay, ISO offset can be cool for some other things. Like I'll show you this really quick. So if I want to scatter a bunch of points that I want to use to put other objects on those points, I would use this. Now you see all those dots? Those are points that I can now use to put other objects on. I'll show you that really quick, just really quick. So if I can actually use the same sphere, translate or transform, and I'll make this like a little tiny sphere that, what's going on? That we, let's turn the grid on. Where's the grid? Hello, grid. Something strange happening. Anyway, let's save just before, in case something happens. Okay, so I've got a sphere, a little tiny sphere, and I want to scatter that along there. I would just use copy to points. And that does literally what that says. It needs points, that's these ones, and it needs an object to scatter, these ones. Boop. Oh no, what happened? Does it need to be bigger? One. Oh, there we go. It's just off in space for some reason in a weird spot. Ooh, it's a very strange effect there. Okay. Okay, so it does that. So I basically, oh, I see why. Look at the grid. Where's the grid? I'm like way up in space for some reason. Not exactly sure why. I may have pressed the wrong button, and that can happen. Oh, that's why. The center of my object is offset by 90, negative 200, negative 160. So we want to turn these all to 0. Okay, that's why. There we go. That's much better. And then again, it being Houdini, I can come in and like I can change the scale of that object. Middle mouse doing it. You know what I mean? Like you can do that kind of stuff. Okay. Anyways, that's an aside. That's something cool you can do. And you can even change the object that's going in, like to a cube or something if you want to. But anyways, what we're going to do here is we're going to use noise to manipulate a object in 3D. And I'm going to show you how. Okay. So one of the ways is turning the sphere into and changing the frequency of it to give it, more polygons essentially. And then I can use a mountain node. And a mountain node is just telling the vertices, these points, to wiggle around with some noise, okay? So yeah, you can do that with, let's use Worley noise. And Worley noise will give us a kind of cool effect, like this. Let's give it a few more divisions. Let's do a subdivide here. Subdividing triangles is a no-no, but whatever, it's fine. There, okay, so you can get some noise. Let's change the element size to something larger and turn the height into like a negative value. Nope, that's not what I want. Positive value? Yeah, it's fine. It's fine for now. So anyways, I'm just showing you that you can distort an object by just chucking a noise on it. It's pushing those polygons around. But the problem here is that we look at this wireframe. Now, if I really crank this up, this height, it's going to invert on itself. It's going to make bad geometry. And we don't want bad geometry for like a video game asset, So there's another type of noise. Oh, the other one I like is alligator. Alligator noise. But as you can see, these polygons are stretched. It's not good geo. It's nothing you'd want to stick into a game. So you've got a lot of polygons here and very few out there. So what's going to happen next is forget about that. Scrap it. Delete. Goodbye. Now what I want to do is I want to turn this into a volume. Now, Houdini has a very special node type and area of Houdini called VDB, which sort of encapsulates volumes like voxels from something like Magic of Voxel software, like that same type of functionality, or Minecraft, or some of what are the other ones? Astroneer, I think, uses similar type thing. So here, I'll show you what I mean. So we want to turn that sphere that we see there into a VDB from VDB from polygons, because that's a polygon object. A lot of stuff is literal in this software, but they'll be named different things. Like a cube is a box for some reason, or a plane is a grid. So there's a weird discrepancy in language, but this software is older than the others. So that's one of the reasons. So now you see this object. You see how it's kind of pixelated? Those are sort of planes that are facing the camera that represent an object in space. And it has thickness to it. Basically, anything that's not that sphere is 0, and everything that is a sphere is 1. You can actually turn anything into a VDB. If we go to some of our test geometry, let's go to this rubber toy. Famous Houdini thing. We've got the rubber toy, and we're going to set it to easy. Oh, it doesn't have an easy one. No shader. So we've got this shape here. Oh, I was upside down all along? It all makes sense now. So now if I put this into the VDB, whoop, now that's a volume. Very cool. That's great. And there's some parameters here. Now, what we're interested in is we want to make this a cloud. We turn on the fog one. Now it's a foggy cloud. Let's turn off this so you can see. It's a cloud. It's a cloud rubber toy. Great. That's what we want to start manipulating. So again, this is a whole nother part of Houdini, but don't worry. You'll approach these step by step. I just want to show you functionally like how you could go about doing this. So I want to turn, not necessarily this rubber toy. Let's go back over here, turn the sphere into something like a weird rock coral thing or something. So now that I have this cloudish type dense volume, I want to convert it, or I want to utilize a volume VOP. Now, VOPs are a way of, there's weird lingo, I understand, in Houdini. Don't worry about it again. It's a way of like visually programming, and it runs fast too. It's like just as fast as like programming it. It's like a visual programming that you can use to manipulate objects. So if we go to volume VOP, sorry, I jumped in too quick. You'll get this little V that's like shaped like a cloud, and it'll, be plugged in there. So if we jump in there, it's kind of similar to that other node network, except it goes from left to right. Here is the object going in, and here is its output. So essentially, let's just add some noise and then chuck it in game. I'm kind of thinking I've got a lot to show you. I'm going to truncate a few things, but we're going to cover all the things we've talked about. But it might go for another half hour, I think. I don't know if that's okay with everyone, but there's no node for that. there's a node for everything. It's kind of funny. Like I've been using it for maybe since 2017. I still have so much to learn. There's so many nodes, especially in the special effects and simulation area, that I just am still learning. So if I go to noise, just type noise, like press tab, type noise, and you'll see some noises, and just drag them in. So in our case, let's go ahead and use the turbulent noise, because I know this one pretty well. Chuck that in. Now what I want to do is I want to push you mouse over, it'll tell you P, it's a vector, that's the type, it's data type. And I want to push that into position, which also takes a vector. It's kind of self-explanatory, but it's just going to take some while to get warmed up too, especially if you're not used to this straight away. I want the noise to go into the dense. Oh, see how it's changed already? It's actually dense. So inside, the noise is being projected inside the object. It's not just like cloud noise in Photoshop that's 2D. It's going into the object. So this object is 3D noise right now. So what I want to do, so I've just plugged that in. Let's go up a level. Now, that's cool, a cloud. I can't put a cloud in a video. Actually, you can put a cloud in a video game, but that's a whole nother topic. Let's go ahead and go into our convert VDB. So that's what we're using. That's what I want to convert. Click that, drag this into the first node there. Click render. Now I want to convert that volume that VDB to a polygon. What happened? It disappeared. Now this has something to do with the ISO value. So if you just put that up just a touch, just a hair, 0.01, now you can see a 3D representation of our volume. Let's go back into our volume VOP. Now with our 3D noise there showed up, let's multiply it by the density of this object. And again, press tab and then type multiply. It brings in a multiply node. This is the mathematics multiply, like we all did in school. Multiply the density by the noise coming in. Boop. There, okay, that's cool. Now we can start adjusting stuff. Let's give it a Perlin noise or something. It's not really doing much. Amplitude, kind of crank that up that way. Roughness, turbulence. Let me go see my reference mesh here. If I click over here, I can pop in and see why this one, what we can do, alligator noise. So this one will create that type of shape, which is kind of coral-like, maybe like something from like one of those weird plants or stone things in No Man's Sky. It's kind of that's actually kind of interesting with just alligator on it. And then again, you can, like Substance Designer or software like that, you can go in and start adding noises to this. I was going to do something different, but I kind of like this. It's kind of just a weird sphere. And I feel like those would like roll to the bottom of our pit. So we're kind of creating a weird story right now. So anyways, yeah, let's check this out. Okay, so maybe we'll add something to that using the mathematic add function or node here. And we'll drag that, pin it in. And by the way, the pins work the same as in the other modes. And let's add another noise. Let's type in, let's just do another turbo noise, turbulent noise. And we'll be taking in the product of this thing here and using that as the position. And then adding this. No, maybe not. Let's do the amplitude and cut that one. And then give this something that's going to affect it a little bit. Simplex. More alligator at like a different frequency. Yeah. So if you click this word frequency, you can actually use the ladder to just crank values there. Ooh, it doesn't seem to be doing much. That's not good. Let's actually go to position. And it is, sometimes the values are quite strange. Not in this case. Let me go check my other one because I actually came up with a kind of a cool coral thing here. If I go to my other node here, just dive into that. Show that one. Nope. Boop. Okay, so if I go up one, sorry, I'm looking at my other network right now. If I jump into this one, it's on my other screen. So I'm talking and it doesn't look like I'm doing much, but so position, multiply. Yeah, like, you know what? Let's actually keep this simple. So we could add this in, but I found it was pretty cool effect with for that choral stuff with the simplex noise. So we'll delete those. By the way, when you delete, if you've used other node networks and you use Houdini, this one's like superb in like how it functions. So we actually are doing this right now, but the issue is our frequency and our convert. So I think what you can do is use your convert node to give it like a smaller ISO value here, or a different one in that case. Do you want to? No, adaptivity changes the geo. That's right. Cool. So we go in here. Let's go adjust that turbo noise. Let's actually come in and give it some amplitude like that. Turbulence makes it a little bit rougher and things. You know what? Maybe this isn't as exciting as I anticipated. So it's cool to have this blobular geometry right now. That's interesting or whatever. But I want to make this original shape different. It's because we're using a sphere. So again, you can actually just go back up and go up to the, one thing up and change that input object. Again, you can use this on the, let's actually put this back to 0, 1. This is the rubber toy. And we'll change the density of this part to something higher. So if we go 0.01, you see how it became a little bit more dense and a little bit more, accurate as to like what that object is. So we won't see anything there, but once we convert it, See what it's doing? It's taking that original object, because this object's bigger as well, and it's like cutting it up in all these weird ways. Now, this is kind of fascinating to me. So now what I want to do is maybe make a cooler sphere shape. So let's go to our sphere. Yeah, it's a little boring. Let's do that thing we learned earlier. Let's put a mountain on it. Now that we've got our mountain on it, let's drag that there, give it a wiggle. And then from that wiggle, I want to, oh, we got some chats there. Once I've done that wiggle, I'm going to let's just transform it. Let's make it tall or something. So with the transform, we're going to make it renderable, make it tall. So how we would do that is just go to the scale node here, or scale category, and type 10. Now it's 10 high. That's a bit too high. Let's go 5, and that is better. Great. Okay, so that's the object that we're going to start whittling down here. Now we'll click that. So we've input a different shape. Now it's kind of choking on it a little bit. It's quite heavy. Ooh, did I make it too big? I think I made it too big. Okay, here's a cool thing about Houdini. If you make a mistake, like I did right now, you can press escape or hammer escape, and it'll go, okay, it'll just jump right out of it, usually, which is really good. Some software will make it, it'll just bake. Too bad for you. So I want to compare the size of this object with this one. So clearly there is a discrepancy in sizes. Oh, maybe not so much. I think my computer just isn't fast enough. So what I'm going to do is scale this object down as a whole, maybe like 50%. So that's 0.5. And we'll try again. This will be a bit better. You don't want to watch me bake or cook stuff, essentially, in a game, in Houdini. So, almost done. There we go. So now we've got this sort of weird rocky shape. Ooh, maybe these are like floating rocks. See, it's kind of eaten away the inside. That's kind of neat. So someone had commented, there's a node for that. So this is very high poly right now. We're going to make this a game asset in about 2 seconds here. So yes, there is a node for that in Houdini. So I want to get rid of these small areas because there's no floating objects. We just want things that are connected. So I can actually get rid of all of these smaller objects that are floating in space that aren't connected to the largest mesh. There's numerous ways of doing this. But there is also just a node. And then we just type in the word small. Now, all of you that are interested in computer games, the labs tools in Houdini have, innumerable tools to help with game development stuff, as well as like a lot of other things like effects and all kinds of stuff. But it started out as like game tools, but then they're like, oh, everyone can use this, and then it's called labs now. I don't know why you needed that information, but it's there. It's out in the open now. So we want to go labs delete small parts. And that does what you think it does. It deletes things that are small on this object. And we want to change this threshold to like 1, I guess, maybe. Let's try 1. And, oh, yeah, there we go. It's deleted, excuse me, zoom up. It's deleted things that are not connected. Oh, I just clicked the DPI on my mouse. That's why my mouse was going all over the place. Great, great, cool. So we've made some kind of weird rock-like spire type thing. Okay, so it's too high poly to put in game. If we were using, you could probably chuck this in Unreal 5 and use their, oh gosh, I forget the name of it, but it breaks this very high poly objects into smaller components, makes it render easier. But in our case, we're going to turn this into a game mesh. So we have this high poly object, and yes, there is a node for it. Reduce, poly reduce. I want to drag that in, render that, and oh, it's going to bake it a little, or it's going to think about it first. And let's turn that down maybe like 50%. And it's going to think about it. It'll give you a percentage down here. So now the next step after this is taking this still very high poly game asset and chucking it in the game engine. This is fine for now. Like, we could spend more time. There's also like an auto UV. We could UV this for game, but I have a procedural texture that I'm using in Unreal right now, so no need. So how do we export this into a game engine? I will show you. No, let's even something better. No, okay, wait a minute. We're gonna do two different things. We're gonna make a procedural. We're gonna make an asset, just a plain asset, and we're also going to make a Houdini digital asset that we're gonna edit. Okay, so first for this spire piece, I'm going to take this poly reduce and I'm going to make something called, if you just look up FBX, because that's the file format that we want to use, it'll come up here. So we want to use ROP FBX output. That's the one we're going to use for our game. Out FBX. So this will just pipe it to where this file is. That's fine for now. I'm going to drag it into game. I could just shoot it right into like where my game project is, but it's fine for now. So what I want to do is the current frame. You can actually render like 50 FBXs if you needed to with different animations, etc. Anyway, doesn't matter. For this, we will go to render current frame, save to disk. What do I want to? Oh yeah, just this file that we have here coming in. And yes, that looks good. Yeah, let's try that. We're going to save to disk. Oh, I am not very smart. I forgot to connect it. So it actually exported an FBX called out FBX. That's the name of our file. And it put an empty in there because nothing was connected. Now if I press it, it'll take a little bit longer. Boopity boop boop. Didn't, weirdly. I guess it's just fast. And where our file is here. So if I go to our file, I should have something named out, which I don't. So something is wrong. No, it's out's right there. Interesting. Okay. Well, oh, my source is in a different spot. That's why. Okay. So here's the issue. So what I want to do here is actually just like locate where on disk it is, and then accept here, and we're going to call it weird rock. Okay, cool, great. What did I forget? I forgot the suffix, the file type. Let's type weird rock dot FBX. Cool. That's the name of it. Save to disk. Beep, beep, beep. Now I have something called weird rock FBX. Weird rock FBX. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that into our game engine and have that process and have a party. Weird rock going in the game engine. Yeah, sure, why not? Okay, so it's going to think about it. One of the things that the collision might be weird, but let's not sweat that right now. So now it's thinking. We'll let that think. Okay, it's already there. There's our FBX, weird rock right here. Let's drag that into our game engine. Ooh, I made a mistake. I didn't scale it correctly. It is the size of a grain of rice. So again, in Houdini, that is like so easy to fix. So upon export, I could like make this whole part like my game ready section, but we'll skip that for now. So I can just put a translate here. So let's transform, excuse me. Let's transform this 100 times the size. So with this transform selected, undo that, transform selected, we will times the size of this by 100. Now it's bigger. Now we'll go back to our export, save. It's saved. So essentially we've made a chain. This is creating this object right now. These like 3, 6, 9, 10 nodes is making an object and exporting it to a game in 10 nodes. And we'll save to disk. Ta-da, boom. We'll go over here, right click, re-import. Ta-da, that should be updating. It is not, it's thinking about it. Okay, while that thinks about it, let's go create our Houdini digital asset. This is, we don't have the time to create like a super elaborate one, but I'm going to show you the basics of it. We're going to make a box that, or we'll make a rock box. Box rock? I don't know. So we will subdivide this box, subdivide, just like your other software, except in here it's a node. Subdivide. By the way, you can actually edit in here too, just like you would in other software. I didn't go over it, but it is a totally functional editor. Like you even have like pie menus for modeling and stuff. Anyways, so now we have this subdivided thing. Let's do another subdivide, copy, paste, and put that there. Okay, so we have a pretty high polygon thing. Let's turn this down to maybe about there. Okay, now we're gonna use that mountain node we used before. Chuck that on. Cool. Mountain, cool. We've made a weird rock. And if we change maybe the offset, we can get different shaped rocks. Okay, great. That is a very strange rock, but let's turn this into a tool. So I can take this object, I select all those nodes that I like, and I'll put it in a box. Boop. Pop it in a box. It's called a subnet. We're gonna name this subnet super cool box to rock tool. It's a very long name, but it's descriptive. Now what we want to do is right click that asset or that subnet and turn it into a digital asset. You can name it, put it in a place on your hard drive, wherever you so desire. I'm just going to leave it where it is right now with its silly long name. Let's actually just make it an acronym. Nah, it's fine. We don't have time for that. Let's just turn off Frankenstein there. There we go, accept, cool. Let's just save it out. It'll bring up this menu. Now this menu is the really important one. These are the parameters of that object. Now, I'm not gonna get into it, but it's a whole nother talk. But in this case, I wanna go in and I wanna expose some of those parameters. One of those parameters would be like maybe the original box size. So I'll just drag that size over there. It'll pop it in there. You can name it however you want. I'm just going to drag them in with their default names. Subdivide is fine, but the mountain's the important one. I want to have the offset as a function, as something I'll be able to use this inside Unreal Engine. Maybe the height and the element size and noise type or nose type, apparently. So now I have some functionality that I can expose in this asset. It's creating a special type of file that Houdini engine will use in the game. So accept, it's saved out. Now I want to drag that into here. Here's one I've already created, but in our case, I want to navigate, and I have it ready here, to our super cool, I'm dragging it from another folder. Here's our super cool box to rock tool. We'll drag that in. And Houdini will spit this out first. And that's our tool that we just created. Oh, I never applied a material, but let's apply a material here. Let's just put on this one. Cool. Now, this is a special thing. So when I have this selected in the outliner here, I can, or the world, what is it called? The world outliner. Yeah, world outliner. If I scroll to here, remember those things that we exposed? These are them. Those are the assets that we've exposed, or the parameters that we've exposed. So I can actually change the size of this rock to 2 times its size. It'll think about it and then spit it out. Great. I want to change the height of the noise to 1.5. It'll think about it and update. So this is a really cool way to dynamically have assets that you can update in Engine. You can bake this out as an object as well and just like have it non-dynamic anymore. That's also an option. What happened there? Something weird's going on. Mesh distance fields. Okay, so yeah, super cool. So this one will be a separate instance from that one. and I can actually change this one selected in its parameters. I can change its element size to 5, which will give it a bit of a smoother look, and offset by 20, and changing the shape of our objects. Isn't that wild? It's like pretty cool stuff. Okay, so that is like maybe the quickest I've ever showed how to do that. You may not have gathered that all, but essentially you make a network of stuff you like, and you can turn it into a tool in your game engine. This also works in Unity, by the way. If you're already a developer and you're messing around in Unity, it also has Unity function. You do need to have a subscription to Houdini Indie, I believe, for that. But also, if you're in school, you'll have that functionality as well with Houdini Engine, etc. So cool. That's super cool. So now we have this asset as well. Let's put our dynamic texture on that. I'll explain what kind of texture this is. This is why these objects aren't UV'd right now. We could have UV'd them, but we just didn't, and make it like a regular object. But for this type of weird shape, having world aligned textures, so basically it's spray painting the texture from all the different directions, and that's how it's textured right now. That's how the material works. So yeah, these are just world aligned textures. Actually, let's clean this up because this looks dirty. There we go. World aligned textures piped into a plain material, essentially. So yeah, cool. We've got our weird rock thing here. Now let's scatter that around. Let's go to where our player is. And then we can go test out this geometry that we've created within the hour here. And as you can see, I could iterate on this quite easily as well. And if you were really putting like artistic effort into it, like I'm talking and doing this, but if you were like really like adjusting stuff, you can get some totally wild results. And it doesn't have to be abstract like this. It could be regular rocks or something. I just like to get outer spacey. What do we want to do is we want to select our player start. We're going to jump to that. Oh yeah, we were right next to it. That's great. Okay, we'll actually move this guy closer to or we can just move the player start. So if we go over to our player start and move that this way. Sadly, I don't have a number pad, and I have to use like weird function keys, but you can press the end key while something's selected in Unreal, and it'll just put it right on the ground, which is, that's a pro tip I will also share with you. There's 2 pro tips today. So we'll duplicate this by we'll go to full screen by pressing F11, and then we'll just drag this around, scale it up. Now, Unreal works a lot like your traditional editors as far as your gizmo, like this move tool. So how would this look in a game? So I'm thinking like, let's turn off rotational snap because we don't need this to be exact. Which one is rotational snap? It's this one. All right. Yeah, so we'll make like a circle, like Stonehenge or something with our asset here. And rotate this a little bit like that. And you can scale it down a bit. Oh Lord. Oh, it's already 8:30. My gosh. I was just having so much fun. I obviously really like talking about this stuff because if you're an artist and you're making assets and you do something more than like 3 times, when you learn this type of software, and I believe this is the future of a lot of asset development, there'll still be people, ZBrushing stuff, doing things by hand, of course, absolutely. But this is a big help. And as an artist, even an artist, a regular, just traditional artist, you don't have to be a computer scientist or anything, can utilize this and you take the position of kind of like a tech artist in a way. And it takes a lot of the load off a tech artist to focus on more important things than like, I don't know, like rock generation, for example, or things like that, Okay, so I won't get full Stonehenge here because we're kind of running a little late there. But let's press play. Alt P. Boom. Ta-da. We're playing video games. I'll try not to go too fast. Oh, it's lagging. I think it's because we're streaming and etc. But yeah, as you can see, I made a bunch of weird assets for a game, and in a game within a relatively short period of time, and they're customizable. So like again, like these rocks can be, smooth rock, bumpy rock. It's going to obviously look better with a texture on it, but and here's what I made before, these like weird corals. I literally did the same network, but just a different noise and parameters. So you can see one makes that shape and one makes whatever the heck these are. And I have complex collision on, so like every polygon is colliding with it. But as you can see, you can make doing this by hand, like making this weird like, oh, I broke the game. Oh gosh, someone call the GM. Help, I'm stuck. This is like an MMO, like when you get stuck. I'm gonna exit out of that. But as you can see, you can break your game by making crazy geo. But you can create strange geometries, right? That's the whole point of noise, like in this case. Like, it's not the whole point. You can make like a rock surface, or you can make like, this is a crazy exaggeration, like a total, weird empty spaces in between. Let's try to run this again and see if we can crawl around that object just to see kind of a neat space that you can create with this type of noise generation. Maybe around the backside, I don't know. Oh, I'm too short, I think. I can't jump up there, but yeah. Yeah, let's get in there. See? Like, can you imagine like all these weird places you can explore? Oh, there was jumped out of the side. Yeah, anyways. So yeah, this is how you can, this is, I think is something, for the future, creating assets in more intelligent ways. And even with the texturing, you can do a lot of this same stuff in 2 dimensions, utilizing Substance Designer, for example. So yeah, I guess that kind of concludes how to use noise and create functional asset in a matter of moments. So yeah, I guess I'll open up questions now. If anyone has questions, hopefully I can answer them. Not sure how this works. Let me just go take a look. Please excuse me, as I'm kind of new to this here. So let's take a gander. Weird Drock 2021. Oh, poor dinosaur. Does anyone have any? Open one question. There we are. Why is viewing the train slower in engine? Okay, so viewing the terrain is slower in. So I guess moving around, maybe that could be due to lag on my machine, or if that's what you mean, Mohammed Madi. That was your question. I think it's due to lag over the network. Also, my computer speed. This is only have a 1070 in my card, but for my graphics card, that could be a reason for it. But as far as you're talking about rotation, maybe like that. That's the speed of my computer, and also streaming at the same time. Yeah, hopefully that answers. Does anyone have any other questions? It could be anything too, like about me or how games work or 3D or why other reasons why these types of tools are used. Oh, thank you. What about triangles on an asset when you reduce poly? Okay, so that's an excellent question. Aaron asked, like, triangles like on an asset. So if we go into this object here, if we were going to subdivide it before we stick it in game, and we want to reduce polys, to something more manageable or something more You'd actually use a different method here. You'd actually use remesh in this case. So here's another node. Here's a little bonus feature here. So we've made a funny game asset that's just pushing polys around. We can actually remesh it to something a little more, a little better here. That's maybe a little. So we want to change the target size of edges to like 0.05 maybe. There we go. So you get some triangles like that. So if it's the question of triangles are not good, that's can be a myth sometimes. If you're making a character geometry, you're going to want to have elbows that bend. But if you're making a rock, it doesn't matter. The only thing that would matter is how you texture it and the UV seam on something. So let's do this. Let's just do a side thing. Why not? Let's get weird. So that poses a really good question. So if I had this object, I can actually UV it by using auto UV, Labs auto UV. We'll chuck that in. Let's save first. And we'll drag that in and render it. And now what it's done is we have this object here. Let's look at it before. And if we go to UV mode, which is space 5, I know, weird hotkey. Actually, I think it's just 5 now. Yes, it is 5 now. I taught a class recently, and I was pressing space 5 the whole time, and I realized that they changed it to just 5. If it wasn't already just 5. That's just the way I learned it. So no UVs. There's nothing there, right? We want to see a wireframe. Ta-da! Automatic UVs. So, I mean, these aren't great UVs, but it does a quick job, and it's automated. So I don't have to do anything. There's no UVing for me. And this object is UV'd and ready to be put in a game. You can actually test your UVs out by using the UV, what is it called here? Quick shade. That's right. If we go to quick shade, we can actually see our UV. So other software, you usually have to bring in your own picture. With Houdini, all this stuff it's just there for you. So it's harder to use in other ways. But yeah, so you can check it to see the stretching on your UV. It's actually pretty good UV, like as far as stretching wise, it's pretty good. So cool. Now this will be exported into game, this last node here. I don't want that to be in the game. That's kind of weird having that there, but I do want this UV there. So what I'm going to use is an output node, because remember, this is a tool. This is a tool that I can use in our game engine. So we want to use the output node, and that'll say to the tool, be like, don't put anything else as the output, put this as the output. And then it's the output node. Does what it says. Now if I go to the game, did I miss a bunch of questions? Are they timed or something? I hope not. Okay, well anyways, hopefully that answers the question. Now, what I want to do is save this asset. Now that I save it, super cool box, I'm gonna save it. It's saved. Now if I go to my game engine, let's go jump to that tool really quick. Okay, so now this will have UVs on it when I bring it in. So if I go rebuild, it'll grab it from disk, rebuild it, magic stuff happens on the screen, and now I will have a UV'd asset. This object will have UVs on it. Will it be able to take this texture? It will not. So there's some kind of discrepancy there. I would have to figure that out. Or it's just thinking. Not sure. Anyways, now it was that quick. For me to update that digital asset and bring it to Game Engine is like a second of work. And now it's UV'd. It's fully UV'd and whatever. Pretty cool. So hopefully that answers that question. It was a long-winded way of saying triangles are okay when you reduce or remesh an object, especially for like environment pieces and stuff. Dependent on shading. Which softwares do you think are the most used for environment art in the video game industry? So most used for environment art. So doing terrains and stuff like that. Traditionally, there was World Machine. Now there's something called Gaia. I like Houdini. I'm a Houdini user. I really like the ability to, I know the node network, how it works. So that's the one I use. Plus there's the usage of having a Houdini digital asset, an HDA file, like what we just saw there with that updating rock. But there's also Maya, 3D Studio Max. A lot of environment artists like 3D Studio Max, and Blender is now a huge competitor in the market. So yeah, Blender is totally fine to use. There's all the tools there, a lot of extra functionality through really great add-ons. I'm a Blender user now too, but I traditionally use 3D Studio Max and Maya. Hopefully that answers your question. How do you get started for designing environments and games? It's a complex subject, but really just looking at pictures, going out and exploring stuff. So creating an environment, if you're like a level designer, you have a different perspective on making something a fun place to play. As a level artist, you want to turn that level designer's layout into like a beautiful piece of art. So if you think of games like Tomb Raider or Uncharted series, for example, they have like very beautiful environments where every nook and cranny is detailed with foliage and rocks and dust and all kinds of stuff. So that's a good way to look at it. It's just practice your 3D art, look at environments, go on Pinterest, make like your Pinterest boards of like your favorite cool spaces, and then try to recreate those in 3D software. So you could use something like Houdini, which is advanced. It's nothing stopping you from doing anything really, or like Blender, for example. And also one of those cool things is to, once you're starting out, is hit up forums. Go to forums and talk to people, other people who are doing it, say, hey, I'm a beginner. How do I get into like making, I don't know, furniture or something? Start small, like a small room, and then work out from there. It takes years, like any type of job, to gain experience in the different zones. I have a weird experience because mine is like a wide experience where some people are like superior at zebra sculpting, like they're the best in the world. And that's a job too. So hopefully that's another long-winded answer, but hopefully that answers. But designing environments, you can also, sorry, I was just thinking of another thing. You can design them out in just Unreal Engine or Unity and light it and do all that kind of stuff too. Just gray blocks, using gray blocks to make a beautiful environment, and then you put art on it. That's kind of how games are made, by the way, like environments. Which softwares do you think are most? Oh, okay, that was it, I think, for the questions. You shoot me another one if you have any more questions. Is there anything, Duakar or Matt? Do you have anything to say, or do we want to just have it end it now? Or I could show more tidbits, more things. If anyone's interested. Cool. Okay, well, I really appreciate everyone coming out. Oh, am I one of the mentors at the game dev program, the CA? I'm not one of the mentors, no. I was teaching in the game tech program for similar stuff, like creating assets, also like traditional like Maya, and then Houdini and Substance Designer stuff. So like Substance Designer is kind of like what you saw today, but for like 2D textures and things. Oh yes, yeah. Again, thank you all for coming out. No, I'm not the teacher. Oh, there's more questions. Sorry. No, I'm not. But yeah, thanks again. I really appreciate you coming out. I know this was a like really intensely dense topic, but hopefully you gathered something, or at least had a glimpse into the window of how these types of assets are created and what kind of fun utilizing noises on objects can be, and what you can use them with. You can use the things I showed you today mixed with traditional modeling things as well, like chopping an object up and shifting them around to make like, stacked rocks and things like that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, everyone. And have a wonderful day, evening, or dusk. Who knows what time it is all around the world. Thanks again, everyone. Have a good day.